Welcome back from the break. Again, my name is John Dyck, CEO of CESMII, and it's a genuine honor to address you all today on the first day of our Smart Manufacturing Summit 2021. I trust you've enjoyed the opening sessions of our Smart Manufacturing Summit. I know I sure did. Lots to consider and lots to learn from there, but there's still a ton of great content coming your way, so sit back and enjoy. As I look at our prospects as a manufacturing nation here in the US, I'm more excited and more optimistic than at any point in my 30-year career. It's more broadly understood today that manufacturing is vital to our nation's prosperity, and the notion of supply chain complexities has, for the first time in my lifetime, become dinner time conversation. But this national epiphany has come at an enormous cost. The past 2 years have stretched our nation in almost every dimension, and our ability to address them, even our most basic needs, has been tested in ways that we've never experienced. John F. Kennedy famously said, "The rising tide lifts all boats." But on the flip side of that, and perhaps less famously, it was Warren Buffett that said, "Only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked." The COVID pandemic uncovered a whole new level of fragility and brittleness in our supply networks, which has spectacularly underscored the need to accelerate our investments in digitization, in smart manufacturing. In fact, in a recent global manufacturing survey, Gartner found that, get this, fully 88% of manufacturing leadership understands and accepts the need to invest in smart manufacturing. And in the same survey, COVID was the catalyst for 59% of US manufacturers to accelerate their current smart manufacturing initiatives. This is why, as I mentioned before, this is a great time to be in manufacturing. It's a great time for all of us that are in the business of helping manufacturing here become more productive, more resilient, and more sustainable. And it's a great time to be part of what we're collectively working on here at CESMII, enabling and funding innovation in a market that is in desperate need of innovation. In fact, the last major disruption in this space was in the early 90s when Wonderware introduced the first Windows-based HMI SCADA product, putting the power to create value in the hands of the average manufacturing engineer. In essence, what Wonderware did back then was democratize access to data from automated equipment and created a way for an entire industry to innovate using data. Here we are 30 years later, and the industry seems poised for another disruption. As we confront the grand challenges before us, the need to become more productive and more resilient, while at the same time working on decarbonizing and becoming more sustainable, we have an opportunity to think differently about solving these grand challenges and to have CESMII, this great collection of brilliant and innovative leaders and organizations, catalyze this disruptive innovation. I'd like to take the next few minutes and share with you CESMII's point of view, informed by our roadmap and funded by our strategic investment plan. There are two overarching points that I'd like to make today, and then leave you with a call to action. The first point is, perhaps somewhat provocatively, that the fourth industrial revolution has yet to materialize in a meaningful way. The US lags the developed world in the adoption of smart manufacturing and digital transformation, which the data bears out, and understanding deeply why that is the only way we'll actually make the necessary course corrections to make some improvements. The second point is that we have, together with our members here, our project teams, partners, made enormous progress on our journey to democratizing smart manufacturing. Our project teams have contributed significantly to our capabilities as defined by the 4 pillars in our roadmap. And what you'll see here for the balance of the event is the realization of this vision that we've been working towards for years now. That, as we'll demonstrate for you a week from today, we're well on the way to reducing the cost of implementing smart manufacturing solutions by 50%. That we've dramatically improved the accessibility of smart manufacturing for small and medium manufacturers. And that our smart manufacturing knowledge and upskilling and talent development investments are gaining momentum. In short, We know that CESMII's vision is an audacious one, but we are genuinely convinced that we can make a dent in the smart manufacturing universe. And finally, I'm going to appeal to you to actively engage with us in our efforts to disrupt the manufacturing systems marketplace. And if you're a thought leader in this space, join us to challenge our thinking and help us refine our strategy so that we can succeed in our mandate to create a more productive, more competitive, and more sustainable manufacturing environment here in the US. For those of you not familiar with CESMII, let me share a high-level overview of who we are. We're one of 16 Manufacturing USA institutes. We're headquartered in the city of LA, where we enjoy a great partnership with the city and the surrounding regions. We're funded by the Department of Energy. We're a mission-based, not-for-profit, and we've been entrusted with $140 million in funding to do some really important things for US manufacturing. We do that as a public-private partnership, engaging our members to develop a US roadmap for smart manufacturing and the strategic investment plan that outlines how we deploy that funding. And then our various groups develop and refine our path to execution for those strategies. Our members consist of these core stakeholder groups, as you see here: the manufacturers themselves, the systems integrators, the vendors, the machine builders, and of course the academia and nonprofits that are such a vital part of this value chain. Our mandate from the federal government is to enhance US manufacturing productivity and global competitiveness, to focus on dramatic improvement in energy productivity, to reduce the cost of deploying smart manufacturing in brownfield deployments, and demonstrate significant industry adoption of smart manufacturing technologies. As you see in the top right there, our strategy to accomplish that is to accelerate the democratization of smart manufacturing in these three core areas: in our enabling technologies and through standards advocacy, through empowering a data-driven culture and smart manufacturing-enabled ecosystem, enabling the OT ecosystem to evolve towards openness and interoperability. We work with our members, as I mentioned, to translate all of that into a roadmap, a comprehensive document that outlines our executive plan for each of these four pillars. The building of a strong smart manufacturing ecosystem, a strong portfolio of smart manufacturing enabling technologies, our smart manufacturing education pillar, ranging from comprehensive business practices to upskilling and workforce development, and finally, a key set of foundational technologies, the Smart Manufacturing Innovation Platform and Smart Manufacturing Profiles, among others, as strategic enablers on our path to democratization. And finally, on the bottom right, our smart manufacturing first principles, which we believe are the ultimate characteristics of a future-proof smart manufacturing strategy. These first principles represent the foundation for what it means to be a genuine Industry 4.0 technology. And Conrad will speak to this on November 10th in his session called Smart Manufacturing Business Training, Future-Proof and Maximize the Value of Smart Manufacturing Solutions. You heard Kelly Speaks Backman earlier this morning share her sense of urgency around some of the grand challenges facing our nation and our planet. We are frequently asked about the role of smart manufacturing in these important issues, and our response is direct. Smart manufacturing at scale has the unique ability to create enormous business value, while at the same time dramatically impacting these societal challenges. If you look at literally every business driver we see here in this hot off the press smart manufacturing survey from Gartner, they could be articulated in terms of decarbonization, sustainability, energy productivity, etc. The linkage between these two sets of priorities and measures is something we're going to be aggressively focusing on here at CESMII. The reason we're optimistic that we're on a trajectory to actually accomplish these audacious goals is because of the company we keep. No pun intended. We have an incredible set of partners here engaged in every aspect of the work we do, volunteering their time, their talents, and their treasures, and we're grateful for every one of them. I'm also deeply indebted to the Smart Manufacturing board of directors. This is a remarkable set of leaders, each one of them accomplished in their own right. I'd like to briefly call them out and publicly express my appreciation for their leadership and their passion for the cause of smart manufacturing. Mark Besser from Savigent is also on the executive board. Kathy Cahalan from Bennett AI, also on the executive board. Greg Colvin from Honeywell. Ken Creasy, who's the chairman of the board and on the executive council from Johnson & Johnson, rather. Jim Davis from UCLA on the executive board as well. John Dyck, yours truly. Jesus Flores from Linde, also previously known as Praxair. Allison Gotkin from Raytheon. Bob Grayhill from Nimbus Services. Howard Harari, recently retired from NIST. Simon Jacobson from Gartner. Kevin Jones from ECM. Pramod Karganikar from UCI. Nathan Lasnowski from Concurrency. Doug Lawson from ThinkIQ. Michelle Pastel from Corning. Sudarshan Rashuri from the Department of Energy. Joe Sanguinetti from General Mills. Tyler Soderstrom from ExxonMobil. Ricardo Vasquez from the City of LA. And last but not least, Scott Whitlock of Flexware Innovation. We're also privileged to work with a great team at the U.S. Department of Energy. As you see here, we've got Dr. Becca Jones-Albertus, the Acting Director of the AMO Office, Melissa Kambara, Acting R&D Consortia Program Manager, Dr. Diane Bauer, Acting Deputy Director, Advanced Manufacturing Office, Dr. Sudarshan Rashuri, who's our Technical Program Manager, Bill Primack, Lead Project Manager, Stephen Shooter, Fellow of Science and Technology Policy from AMO, Lexi Kim, Project Manager, and William Handy, also Project Manager. And as you interact with our team here at CESMII, I'm confident you'd agree with me that this is an incredible team. They're great at what they do, but more than that, they're here with a passion for the greater good that we believe we're facilitating here through our membership and through the work that we do here. As we get to the work of the Institute here, I thought I'd share a few interesting, though in some cases, sometimes shocking, smart manufacturing stats. In our plans for this to be a face-to-face discussion, these were framed up as questions, and I had some treats to give away for those of you with the best answers, but that obviously won't work here. I trust you'll find this interesting. Any idea what the less than 20% might allude to? This is the number of manufacturing assets that are actually connected inside their plant environment on a plant network. Shocking, actually. $21 million, the actual number that CESMII will invest, the dollars that CESMII will invest in smart manufacturing innovation in this year. 50%, as I briefly mentioned before, this is CESMII's goal, our goal, in terms of reducing the cost and time to deploy smart manufacturing solutions in a brownfield setting. Brace yourself for this, 4 to 11%. This is the number or the percentage of all digital transformation projects that succeed. This is both from McKinsey, as you may have heard, but also from a recent executive discussion with Amazon. What is kind of left up to our math here is that somewhere between 89 and 96% of all digital transformation projects don't succeed, which is part of what it is we're here to work on as an institute and part of the strategies that we're working on developing here in response. 4.6 million refers to the manufacturing jobs created over the next decade. Here's another interesting stat. 20% is the average delta between plants that manually collect key performance indicators on performance, like OEE, and what actually happens to be the case when you implement a smart manufacturing solution to measure that performance in a digital way, in a data-driven way. What the plant historically, and this is an average, but what the plant historically thought might be 85% OEE, when the smart manufacturing system is deployed, actually demonstrates something closer to 65% OEE. Shocking, and a great demonstration of the value provided by smart manufacturing. JICI, a new acronym. If you haven't heard it yet, I think you're going to hear more. This is a new supply chain inventory management strategy that broadly is being brought about as part of the supply chain disruptions that we're seeing here nationally and globally, and that are driving an entire new approach to how supply chains are managed, and of course in the process incurring significant cost and requiring the kind of resilience that we'll be talking about here in the coming minutes. And last but not least, a great story in terms of how one CPG member here at CESMII is reaping annual savings of $20 million from one smart manufacturing project. So, speaking of the enormous potential for business value, I'd like to get really specific about our progress here in the US and how we're faring in the context of manufacturing productivity and competitiveness. Despite all of the massive changes that have been impacting manufacturing globally, it's interesting to note that what hasn't changed for decades is the basic business drivers, the desired outcomes of all strategic initiatives in manufacturing. Manufacturers are fundamentally looking to improve their quality, throughput and yield, compliance and safety, while simultaneously reducing their costs, complexity, time to market, and risk. So when the industry analysts began talking about the fourth industrial revolution 10 years ago and the $4 trillion of new value creation over the ensuing decade, people paid attention, a lot of attention, and rightly so. But with that first decade officially behind us now, it's probably helpful to take a good hard look at how we actually fared. You may have seen this slide before, but I believe it's important to, as a baseline rather, for the industry as a whole. So bear with me, I'll keep it brief. This set of boxes represents an actual set of manufacturing systems from one of the most mature, capable Fortune 100 manufacturing companies I've seen in my career. They've deployed these sanctioned mission-critical systems in more than 60 of their plants globally. Each one of these systems represents its own information models or data model, its own user experience. But in spite of this massive investment in technology, they spend roughly 40 people hours for each shift in each plant, manually reaching into these systems and ultimately printing Excel-based reports and dashboards for each shift handoff, for production, for maintenance, and for quality. As an interesting side note, in a recent audit, they identified another 1,600 non-sanctioned systems in their plants. They call these shadow IT. But the point I was hoping to make is this. For the past decade, since the declaration of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, there's been a massive influx of new players selling their new Industry 4.0 or industrial IoT solutions. To be clear, there have been great innovations around cloud, augmented or virtual reality, AI and machine learning, etc. These existing players have the existing players in the space have either rebranded their legacy portfolio as somehow being Industry 4.0 compliant, and in some cases are actually re-architecting their on-premise portfolio to run it in the cloud. But the interesting reality is this, as I've called out here, the cost of acquiring, implementing, and owning these supposedly next-gen solutions looks a lot like the existing portfolio of Industry 3.0 solutions, and in some cases represents even more complexity given the relative lack of experience in cloud-based architectures. So the question we're trying to answer as directly and carefully as possible is this. What does the fourth industrial revolution actually mean for manufacturing? Why does it still feel like we're still propagating the same complexities and the same proprietary, closed behaviors that are more aligned with the third industrial revolution? I don't know if this comes as a surprise to you, but our manufacturing productivity here in the US has plateaued and declined for an entire decade, for I believe the first time in recorded history. And yes, this is the same decade in which we were introducing this new technology-induced industrial revolution, which would result in $4 trillion of new value creation in manufacturing. It seems to me that we ought to think carefully and understand deeply what this means. There are enormous implications here, and it would seem that we have an obligation to confront this reality and work towards a future where we actually realize the value of these important new innovations. I'll be so bold as to predict that unless we figure this out, this productivity trajectory will not correct itself. The current ability for small and medium manufacturers to engage in this world of digital transformation rounds down to zero. A U.S. manufacturing strategy that doesn't enable small, medium manufacturers to participate is one that's doomed to mediocrity, which gets us back to the urgent need for the democratization of smart manufacturing. The third industrial revolution saw decades of largely uninterrupted productivity growth. The creation and rapid growth of the industrial automation sector, the first generation of digitization technology, and immense focus on quality and productivity in concert with transformative continuous improvement strategy. Decade one of the fourth industrial revolution hasn't fared as well. We saw a decade of falling productivity, as you've seen here. Many automation markets are seen as being saturated. We're left sustaining aging, complex, brittle manufacturing systems and a plateauing of continuous improvement outcomes, meaning that the low-hanging fruit has largely been plucked. Let's take a brief look at this in the context of previous industrial revolutions. This year marks the 10th anniversary of Industrie 4.0. We've concluded that the promised value creation didn't materialize. We've learned the hard way that only 4 to 11% of those investing in this space can declare success. We're on the record here declaring that this industry, at least here in the US, is still largely stuck in the third industrial revolution. And if you pause for just a moment of reflection, it kind of makes sense. Manufacturers and those of us supporting them are completely uninterested in a revolution. Innovation, yes. Revolution, not so much. So this is by definition a slow-moving environment. That said, we've tried here to define the natural outcome of Industry 3.0 with no malicious intent, by the way, but these are the characteristics that we believe we've come to at the end of the third industrial revolution. Manufacturing systems are predominantly proprietary and closed. There's no interoperability. Data is locked in each application, each data silo. There's vendor lock-in. Once you're committed to a vendor, you're investing with that vendor whether you like it or not. There's no application portability, no information model portability. There's challenges scaling up. There's certainly challenges scaling down from a cost perspective. And there's enormous implementation risk for those that are implementing these systems. The big question for those of us here, and many not here yet, are we willing to tackle the hard challenge of evolving towards a better way of manufacturing? We call that better way Smart Manufacturing 2030, where smart manufacturing is manufacturing. I'd like to share with you how our efforts, together with our many great partners, are paving the way to Smart Manufacturing 2030, where smart manufacturing is democratized and every manufacturer can choose to engage. We've recently, together with input from literally dozens of our members here, gone through a massive roadmap refresh to refine our strategy and through our own continual improvement initiative, ensure that we stay aligned with what industry needs from us and how to best invest our funds in exactly those ways. A revision of this roadmap is available on our website, and while it's a fairly comprehensive document, it's also a fairly easy read, and I'd encourage each of you to take the time to review it. You'll hear from each of the functional leaders over the next few days that own each of these strategic smart manufacturing pillars, but let me give you a quick run through of what they each represent. Smart manufacturing ecosystem integration is about creating or fostering a smart manufacturing ecosystem based on trust and leading smart manufacturing practices and capabilities. It's about bringing clarity and understanding to a complex and noisy smart manufacturing market. We have a great announcement to share with you on that topic in a few moments. It's about a national network of smart manufacturing innovation centers aligned with industry verticals or technologies, each one of them acting as a center of excellence for that industry or for that technology, each one of them capable of bringing domain experts around to bear for smart manufacturing and visioning and innovation and R&D. And last but not least, smart manufacturing knowledge, engaging in the process of educating and informing and upskilling the local talent necessary for smart manufacturing. Smart manufacturing enabling technologies is a significant investment for us around funding collaborative innovation, bringing parties together that historically haven't been able to innovate or haven't been able to connect outside of this environment. It's about identifying and filling strategic smart manufacturing technology gaps. It's about structuring the innovation, the actual process of innovation, to ensure that what we produce, the value that we create, is repeatable and portable and relevant to many, many other manufacturers. And it's about bringing the value of these innovations back to our membership. Smart manufacturing education is about the democratization of technology-enabled practices for higher productivity levels. It's about a pipeline of talent with skills on new technology-enabled practices and a significant set of educational resources. We have a knowledge portal that's being populated with these tools. We have brand new transformation tools, smart manufacturing transformation tools, which you'll hear about next week. We have a growing body of curriculum resources and a growing set of labs, applications, and simulators, which again, you'll hear about from Conrad. And last but not least, in this roadmap is our smart manufacturing innovation platform, or perhaps a broader umbrella would be smart manufacturing technologies. These consist of technology foundations that will accelerate the democratization of smart manufacturing, which we'll elaborate on as well, that will enable data and application interoperability, enable portable and reusable application development, enable portable and reusable information modeling, which we talk about as the smart manufacturing profile, ensuring that the way that we address these challenges for the large manufacturers will ultimately benefit the entire ecosystem. For those of you that have been engaged here at CESMII with us for a while, you understand that we've been working towards the availability of our smart manufacturing innovation platform and our smart manufacturing profile designer as an important set of enabling technology foundations, a set of de facto standards, if you will, that will enable the smart manufacturing first principles that I alluded to briefly before. And as for a brief plug, Conrad has a business practice training session next week dedicated to this topic. We've shared bits and pieces of these technologies with you in the past, but I'm thrilled to finally declare that our smart manufacturing innovation platform is now operating in a significant number of plants across the country, having actually matured into mission-critical operations of all sizes and across many industries, moving from R&D and innovation, where successful, to actual production. And I'm excited to share with you that we're making this technology, along with many of our vendor partner solutions, available for you to implement and use for your smart manufacturing innovation projects for free. You'll hear more about this in the days to come, but this is a significant announcement and a big milestone for us. In many ways, the culmination of many years of effort and many great partners that have been participating with us and have helped us reach this point. And why have we gone through this enormously challenging process to build this enabling infrastructure for the industry? This is our attempt to share with you in a simple way what the math looks like, both for the current Industry 3.0 status quo scenario and what it looks like now in our future, in our short-term future, with the smart manufacturing technologies that we're able to begin leveraging now. If we look at a basic application implementation in a manufacturing environment, the analysis that we've done shows us that on average, for every $50,000 license that a manufacturer is going to spend on to create some sort of value or solve some sort of manufacturing challenge, there's roughly $250,000 in additional spend to implement that system, for the infrastructure to run that system, to create the networking and infrastructure to connect to those systems. And clearly a major chunk, a major segment of that investment in what we've called the definition ingestion, modeling, and mapping of the data. And we've tried to make the distinction here between that and the actual application development component, as you'll see why in a moment. So essentially, every dollar that you need to spend on the license results in $6 of spend from a cost of ownership perspective. This represents enormous headwinds. You'd think, though, that there'd be cost savings or economies of scale in implementing a second system in the same way, but the reality is there's very little economy of scale, as you see here. We move from 6x of the license cost to 5x, which is clearly savings, but that's the extent of it. What we're excited to share with you for the first time here is that the CESMII-enabled interoperable Industry 4.0 environment, where we're actually eliminating the waste and the repeated work of enabling smart manufacturing systems at scale, we're able to dramatically cut the cost of implementing and owning these systems. Certain components remain the same, the actual application, the license itself, and the application development itself still represents similar cost structures, but it's the actual cost chain of implementing the infrastructure, the definition, ingestion, modeling, and mapping of this software application represents enormous savings in this new environment. That's based on the fact that we have standards-based information models or profiles available in a marketplace, and the application development costs actually going down as we take those applications from a marketplace and layer them on top of this harmonized infrastructure for our manufacturers. So we're excited to help you understand at a very high level what we're actually going to show through a demonstration next week from Jonathan Wise and team. It'll actually walk you through what exactly this process looks like, demonstrating sort of through a bit of a contrast and compare what Industry 3.0 looks like in this current status quo and what Industry 4.0 with CESMII looks like. It's important to recognize that there are many great organizations working on different aspects of smart manufacturing. You may have seen our announcements recently about our partnership with Germany and the Plattform Industry 4.0 organization, and more recently with Japan and the Robot Revolution and Industrial Internet of Things organization, their counterpart out of Japan. Well, I'm delighted to have our two most strategic partners join me here today, share with you what our collaboration looks like and how it aligns with the strategies we've been sharing with you today. As some of you know, earlier this year at Hanover Fair, we announced our strategic partnership with Plattform Industry 4.0. The organization has been leading the Industry 4.0 charge in Germany. And so it brings me great pleasure to introduce to you Henning Banthien, Secretary General of Plattform Industry 4.0. Henning, can you take a couple of minutes to share a high-level overview of your strategy with our audience?
Sure. Thank you, first of all, very much, John, for inviting me to share some ideas and insights with you. So yeah, right. Looking at this chart here, you can see what is the essence of the platform industry 4.0, and in put it bluntly, sort of the central hub to organize the transformation to a digital industry in Germany, but also on an international level. And as you can see here on this slide, it really means to pull together various stakeholders from businesses, obviously, but also from science, governments, business associations, and also trade unions. Because what you can see with this is, here in our debate, if we look at Industry 4.0, we don't only see it as a technological business activity, but it's an overall societal political program in addition to that. So this is how we frame it. And this chart even shows more how we emphasize the fact that this work is really about applying Industry 4.0, getting it into practice, making it relevant to businesses, enhancing competitiveness in the markets. And you don't need to understand details on this chart, but what it shows is in the various strategic dimensions in which we're working in. So autonomy, interoperability, and sustainability. We have loads of initiatives and activities and projects which we drive as a platform industry 4.0. Sometimes driving means just to coordinate stuff well. Sometimes it means to initiate new activities, but to be in this hub position around the entire digital transformation in Germany and abroad. That's the essence of Platform Industry 4.0.
That's a great overview, Henning. Thank you. I know that you have a 2030 vision for Industry 4.0, not unlike our vision for Smart Manufacturing 2030. Can you briefly touch on the three core elements of that vision, which I know are interoperability, autonomy, and sustainability?
Yeah, thanks for the great question. And as you say, it was great to see in our cooperation how well we are aligned on this strategic level. So to present that strategy to you, it's our vision of how we think ahead in terms of Industry 4.0, smart manufacturing. It's really about shaping digital ecosystems globally. And you see here these three dimensions we have been talking about already. So autonomy is really about the freedom to take independent decisions. Independent decisions on business models, this infrastructure, digital infrastructure you want to use, data protection, security questions, but also technology solutions you're actually picking. So as an entrepreneur, to have these freedom to take these independent decisions. And that is also why we in Germany and Europe are driving activities like Gaia X, or now the specific data space for Industry 4.0, or for mobility with Catena X. So it's really to unfold new types, opportunities for economic potential. And it is to make sure that we actually build and provide data spaces with unified frameworks, standards, routines that make it possible for companies to efficiently collaborate across companies, sectors, to share their data to make work really efficient. The second dimension, interoperability. So this is really about standards, making sure we can actually cooperate in very decentralized systems. As you know, and we've been discussing that a lot in our cooperation, we here on this side of the Atlantic have developed the asset administration shell, sort of as a guiding architecture on how to make sure that we can actually have machines talk to machines, because they are oriented towards shared understanding of how this exchange of data needs to take place. And this administration shell has been well developed. It's ready to go. It has a high acceptance on the international ground. So this is also why we now started a new initiative with the Industrial Digital Twin Association, which promotes and develops in cooperation with various stakeholders across the globe to really support and promote this asset administration shell. And the third dimension is sustainability. And with Glasgow, the COP climate conference taking place, for us from the beginning on, it was important here again to see this technological development of Industry 4.0 in the context of environmental and social challenges, but also opportunities we're having. So to think about Industry 4.0, smart manufacturing as something that actually promotes our path towards sustainability, that helps us solving sustainability challenges. And there again, John, we are in really great talks, because your government is really also here aligned with European governments on what to do in terms of climate protection. But it's also with regard to decent work, education, upskilling, circular economy. So this range of topics, which we believe is really important for a successful competitive companies or market economy in the future. That is the third dimension with regard to sustainability. Now, perhaps if I may, John, I'll continue, because what I said, this vision is something that is deeply rooted on sort of the fact that we need to cooperate across the globe. And with this slide, you can see the variety of partners from China, Japan, Australia, Korea, naturally within Europe, a lot of cooperations with the Commission, but also countries like Italy or France. And then especially with you guys, which is really a genuine privilege to work with you, because here again, Industry 4.0 smart manufacturing can only be successful if we think it globally. So this international cooperation on very different levels, be it standardization, upskilling, sustainability, we need to do this together. And this is, for us, why the strong networks with really good partners across the globe is really important. And to work with you, John, and your colleagues at CESMII and other stakeholders in the US is really, really great. It's a huge opportunity and really something really productive. So I'm happy that actually this spring, this year, at the Hannover Fair here in Germany, we announced our partnership, and to me, we made great progress on that.
Thanks, Henning. Yeah, our efforts have been focused on several key initiatives to support these harmonization efforts. Would you mind going to the next slide briefly? Yeah, so these harmonization efforts have been a fantastic, as you pointed out, Henning, a fantastic opportunity for our organizations to learn about each other and learn to trust each other, which is always a great foundation for these types of strategic engagements. But the practical outcomes have been phenomenal as well. I think the core focus for our activities together have formed around these technology foundations, like, as you mentioned, asset administration shell and our smart manufacturing profiles here at CESMII. We believe this harmonization at this technology foundation level will play a significant role in enabling interoperability via these approaches to standardizing information models. And the second really vital piece is skills and training, a strategy for both existing practitioners across these ecosystems, but also for the talent pipeline that we all are looking to develop and accelerate. And underlying all of these discussions is our effort to shape sustainable digital transformation. We've outlined our thoughts, for example, in a joint discussion paper this spring, and we can include a link to that in our chat box here if anybody's interested in that. It's really important to share, I think, that member companies of both organizations work in supply chain ecosystems that span across the Atlantic. They share manufacturing IT infrastructure that requires interoperability and a common set of skills and competencies. And working together can help both the large, but also the small and medium enterprises in these international supply chains, especially as they recover from the hardships of COVID-19 and strive to create new jobs and industries for the future. Both Platform Industry 4.0 and CESMII experts recognize the commitments of their governments to environmental sustainability and define it as a central strategic aspect for the digital transformation of manufacturing.
Thanks, John, for outlining these joint efforts. And as you say, I'm really very, very happy that we made that progress. I think it's really impressive what the teams have been able to achieve, and also now very concretely, because it's actually coming up in only 4 weeks, is at the very important fair SPS here in Germany in the second part of November, 23rd beginning. We actually are going to be able to demonstrate something, to show a concrete demonstrator. Would you mind sharing briefly what this is about?
Yeah, like you, I don't want to give too much away, but I too am truly excited at what our teams have been able to accomplish. We've already made great progress on our approaches to leverage these standardized machine information models, as we mentioned, the asset, asset administration shell and smart manufacturing profiles. And this planned demonstrator will show how a machine can manage these two different machine profiles or information models and the harmonization of those information models and how the data will be further processed and then turned into meaningful content or meaningful decision support. And really inspired by our joint paper on sustainable manufacturing, the group chose carbon emission reporting as the use case to focus on. And along the way developing this demonstration on interoperability, we're learning much more about sustainability, and this will clearly continue to be a topic of strategic importance for both of our organizations and our countries as a whole.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, that's very much looking forward to that presentation. Yeah, thanks, John.
Very good. Well, Henning, it's been a pleasure to have this brief conversation with you and to share with the rest of our audience here and really the world what we're working on together and how strategic this is for our manufacturing futures, the competitive, a more competitive, more productive manufacturing future for our countries. And so thank you. Thanks for investing this time with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks to you, John.
One of the important initiatives here that we believe is essential to accelerating the adoption of smart manufacturing is to work within the broader ecosystem and find ways to bring clarity to this marketplace, to reduce the noise and the clutter that can be paralyzing for many in this space, and particularly as we think about small and medium manufacturers. To that end, we have some exciting news to share with you. I'm truly honored to be joined today by Bob Willig, CEO of SME, a nonprofit organization that shares our passion for driving digital transformation. Bob, thanks for joining me today. I've just been talking about both the enormity, the opportunity ahead of us, and of course, some of the work that has to be done to capitalize on these opportunities. We're excited to announce to the industry today that CESMII and SME are teaming up to address these challenges and lead the acceleration of smart manufacturing adoption and innovation.
Good morning. First, we couldn't be happier to partner with CESMII on this important mission to combine and align efforts with the best interest of our employers and educators in mind. For nearly 90 years, SME has been focused on advancing manufacturing. It's an essential driver of growth and prosperity for companies and our country, and frankly, it's what SME's mission drives us for. The move to smart manufacturing is critical for boosting productivity in the US, and that's why we have been so focused on it. The continued advancement is strongly connected to realizing the benefits of Industry 4.0. And we've heard the industry loud and clear. In fact, in a recent Gartner survey, nearly 90% believe smart manufacturing will increase competitiveness in our industry.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know as little as a year and a half ago, before the pandemic, that number was probably less than half of that. So I think that's a phenomenal outcome of a very difficult situation. As I mentioned briefly before, there's a tremendous amount of investment in this space, which is great. But what that also means is that there are many well-meaning, but sometimes even contradicting voices. This seems like a great opportunity for two leading stakeholders with no axe to grind other than to see our manufacturing ecosystem succeed, to come together and collaborate to work on creating some harmony in this environment. Bob?
John, really could not disagree with you. Could not agree with you more. It's especially important for nonprofits to think holistically about what's best for our market. SME wants to partner with like-minded organizations like CESMII and avoid recreating the wheel. Instead, we aim to align strengths, efforts, messages, and ultimately optimize resources that will benefit our entire industry.
Building on what you just said, Bob, I think it's important to recognize the good work of many existing committees and consortiums in the industry, which were working hard to advance smart manufacturing. These existing industry committees serve an important and relevant purpose. The first joint initiative of the CESMII and SME partnership is to build on the strength of what already exists in the market and form a new smart manufacturing executive council that does something uniquely different, something that we don't see happening today yet, but is needed if we're going to truly democratize smart manufacturing. This is our effort to create a smart manufacturing executive council. This new council will engage executives, thought leaders, and visionaries as really a think tank advocating for the transformation of this ecosystem and really being ambassadors to drive the national conversation and vision for smart manufacturing here in the US. One of the important roles for this executive council is to help inform federal, state, and regional policymakers via congressional briefings, media interviews, and other speaking engagements, and really help unify the ecosystem around a common set of interoperability, transparency, sustainability, and resiliency goals and principles for the smart manufacturing ecosystem. Another important part of this council will be to amplify the efforts of those in this ecosystem, including the vendors, machine builders, implementers, and consultants who are crossing this chasm, moving towards Industrie 4.0 in a way that exemplifies what we call the smart manufacturing first principles, something that we're educating the market on collectively together with SME. And last but not least, directing the creation of working groups or linked to other existing committees to support the vision and objectives of this think tank. This creates, as you and I have talked, Bob, a real center of gravity for smart manufacturing in the US.
Well, indeed, John. I mean, for me personally, after spending many years in the for-profit manufacturing environment and now moving into the nonprofit industry in January of this year, it's truly humbling to see the power of volunteerism when focused on passion and a passionate purpose and cause. This think tank will build on each organization's history of working with industry giants who volunteer their time and impart their knowledge to benefit the industry as a whole. SME and CESMII will provide a platform for individual contributors to have national scale impact. I mean, how can you not get excited over that?
Yeah.
And while a lot of work, we have a lot of work to do, as John outlined, to amplify the efforts of the ecosystem and frankly increase awareness at our national leader levels, aligning legislation to the needs of manufacturing, we also have immediate needs inside companies and inside schools. For our industry to move forward and innovate, we all know it's not as simple as adopting and integrating new technologies. We also must make sure the manufacturing workforce is prepared and motivated to be part of this journey. The need for richer, scalable education and workforce development is more important now, frankly, than ever. We see this every day. Manufacturers continue to struggle finding talent with the skills needed for today's workplace demands. I think every manufacturer in the US today is struggling with this issue. It's further exacerbated by the pace of technical innovation. Frankly, technology has outpaced our people in many instances. And if we want to adopt technology, innovate, and remain competitive going forward, we must train our current and future workforce in the art of what is possible in smart manufacturing.
Well said, Bob. Since its inception, CESMII has recognized the challenges you've outlined and is truly committed to developing the capabilities of the workforce to accelerate smart manufacturing. But we've learned that this is much easier said than done. The reality is manufacturers are looking for a more effective, future-proof approach to upskill their workforce, particularly in this environment where change and transformation is happening at a pace that we haven't seen before. And we believe that the best way to accomplish that is for our two organizations to work together. There isn't a need for us to each create the same training. Instead, we want to align our efforts. And as part of our partnership, SME's training arm, Tooling U SME, will become the prime source of education and workforce development around smart manufacturing. Together, we'll combine CESMII's deep domain expertise and necessary skills with Tooling U SME's know-how to develop education, work with employers and schools, and effectively deliver it at scale nationally and globally. Tooling USME is a partner with extraordinary experience. It's been such a privilege to get to know Janine and the team there. They're the industry's leading learning and development solutions provider, working with thousands of companies. And we were excited to learn more than half of all Fortune 500 manufacturers, as well as 800 educational institutions across the country. Through this partnership, we will set a new benchmark for developing education that remains current with rapidly changing technology and is focused on democratizing access to training on smart manufacturing skills.
Well, John, thank you for the kind comments about Tooling USME. We're clearly very proud of the work that they have done, they will continue to do, and also now being a part of this CESMII initiative even more for the future going forward. But honestly, beyond training, awareness is a big part of the education piece as well. And frankly, I believe it's where it all starts. Companies are struggling with smart transformation at all levels, from awareness through adoption. We need to work smarter. Truly, we need to work smarter to broadly communicate to the masses the value of smart manufacturing, as well as demonstrate its effectiveness for technology-based solutions.
Yep. We too see a natural fit with CESMII's extensive network of subject matter experts and your SME's expertise in producing industry-leading events and media publications, along with your extensive reach into the market. We're combining our strengths with SMEs through this partnership to advance technology awareness and adoption. And just as importantly, it's an urgent imperative, we believe, to articulate the value and really the need for digital transformation and demonstrate technology solutions via industry events, including the Smart Manufacturing Experience, as well as SME media in general. Together, I believe we can raise awareness to a larger audience than either of us can do individually. So Bob, the prospect of the fourth industrial revolution catalyzing manufacturing's revitalization demands a concerted effort to accelerate the evolution of this entire ecosystem. And in closing, I'm thrilled to say that CESMII and SME are committed to driving this effort together to help simplify and clarify and bring some necessary order to a highly disjointed and fragmented marketplace. We're grateful to be able to do this, Bob, with SME.
Well, John, thank you, and thank you for that opportunity. As a mission-driven nonprofit, holistically, SME seeks to align, streamline, and act in the best interest of those we serve and offer support, innovation, and collective thinking to democratize smart manufacturing. This is only the beginning, and we look forward to joining forces with CESMII to lead the advancement of smart manufacturing through the industry. We're thrilled at this announcement today and really look forward to what is truly the art of the possible as we advance smart manufacturing forward together with CESMII. Thanks again for the opportunity.
My pleasure, Bob. Thank you. I trust you found these conversations as compelling and as exciting as I did. Let me close with a clear call to action. There's a relatively simple choice ahead of us. We now understand the patterns and behaviors that led to the existing system complexities that we've characterized as Industry 3.0, as you see on the left-hand side here. We have a choice to continue on that trajectory and invest in systems that reflect those capabilities, or we can work together as an ecosystem to accelerate the movement of this entire set of stakeholders in a way that's consistent with your vision for smart manufacturing and with our collective vision for smart manufacturing 2030. The historic Industry 3.0, as I mentioned before, is marked by proprietary infrastructure, proprietary technologies, and behaviors. Ironically, it's the small medium manufacturers who couldn't afford Industry 3.0 capabilities that are actually in a much better position to leapfrog from Industry 3.0 directly to Industry 4.0 if we can actually succeed in driving down the cost and complexity of smart manufacturing. It's the first principles of smart manufacturing that we hold out as the characteristics of Industry 4.0. And if we can work together to build, broad industry adoption around these first principles, we can bring the entire ecosystem forward and create the value that we know is part of the fourth industrial evolution.